In science, the double slit experiment is a classic. Many viewers probably don't know what this is, so we suggest you look it up in Wikipedia. In a few sentences, it shows that light can show characteristics of both waves and particles. This means that an electron, for example, produces a wave pattern when two slits are used for the electron to move through. This displays the fundamentals of quantum mechanics. The controversial scientist Dr. Tom Campbell, his YouTube channel is linked in the description box below, has taken this further, saying he can prove that this 3D reality is a simulation, like a computer game. It's all made up of code, just like in the Matrix movies. Many people are now accepting that this might be the case, but there are also many alternative researchers who reject this statement. So let us take a look at this. We learn in physics that this 3D construct is held together by atoms, electrons, neutrons and positrons that come together and create molecules. These molecules glued together then form our reality. Thus, we can say that the matrix, i.e. the 4% universe, is the universe of atoms, whilst the 96% universe is not. For example, a certain mix of atoms creates a substance, such as water, H2O. Other combinations create other substances, and supposedly we eventually have the material universe. According to mainstream science and quantum mechanics, there are subatomic gluons that hold all this together, like some kind of nanoglue. However, up to this day, scientists are not sure how all this come together and create our solid universe. So, according to Dr. Campbell's theory, and others are following in his footsteps, the reason why scientists can't figure it out is that they do not realize that beneath all this there is a computer-generated code calculating the exact manner in which the matrix is constructed. Thus far, in this video, we have some simplistic scientific background to fall back to. However, what if we think about this from a more speculative, esoteric and metaphysical standpoint for a while? The computer you are looking at right now is made up of binary code, ones and zeros. These two numbers in almost endless combinations create the different shapes and forms of the screen. Thus, if the screen shows people walking around, a landscape or whatever it could be, it looks exactly as it would in our everyday reality. Most people know that albeit it looks the same, it's just reading code that creates what we see on the computer. If we compare the computer world with our own reality, and really compare them, it's not a stretch to think of the two as being different levels of the same thing. The only difference is that our reality is more sophisticated in certain terms, but otherwise, why is it so far-fetched to think of our reality as a computer program as well? As above, so below. What if the computers we use every day are just a simplified version of our own matrix? A matrix within a matrix. We completely accept that the computer programs are created with code, but in general, we refuse to see that it might be the same way with our own reality. This sounds too fantastic to people. However, let's just accept that we live in a computer-simulated reality for a moment, and we'll see what happens. We take for granted that when we turn on our computers or smartphones, solid pictures and moving pictures will appear on the screen. We know it's technology. Things in the computer look the same as things out here, more or less. Most people love the computerized society we live in because they can escape into this virtual reality, which feels much safer than the reality we are otherwise living in. No bills to pay, no job to go to, no dreadful responsibilities, etc. This 3D reality is becoming more and more unsafe every day because we are constantly bombarded with news and statements that the world we live in is a dangerous world. As truth seekers, we know that this is by design in order to instigate fear in us, real or imagined. Therefore, we seek a seemingly, with emphasis on seemingly, safer environment to distract ourselves in, and that is the technology we are being introduced to. This is very dangerous manipulation we are being subjected to. We are successively being sucked into this technological matrix, and although many of us are aware of this and believe that therefore it's safe, we need to be very cautious because it's so subtle. Before we know it, we are trapped in this lower frequency matrix, and our consciousness will be hooked up to the supercomputer that will run the singularity. There are those of us who propagate for less technology and are emphasizing the danger, but many of us are still upgrading our smartphones and computers, and we download new apps and gadgets to make our computers' experiences easier and cooler. We are doing this with the mindset that we know what's going on, so we can't be trapped. Wrong. If we really ransack ourselves and confront how much time we spend online, compared to how much we spend in our 3D reality, we can see the pattern. If we are not getting uncomfortable when confronting this, we are probably not paying attention and sweep it under the carpet. I am not immune to this either. The technology that is introduced to us is very addictive. Barbara Marciniak's Pleiadians even said that this technology is more addictive than heroin, and I believe it. Go a few days without touching a phone or a computer and see how you feel. Take the smartphone away from your child and you'll see some vicious behavior. Withdrawals? Extreme discomfort? In most cases, probably so. A major problem is that we adjust to using this technology and we forget how to live in the real world. We forget how to socialize, and instead most, sometimes all, of our friends are people we communicate with online, whom we have never seen or met. Then, when we're faced with real human interactions, we get very uncomfortable and insecure. We can only imagine, if this pattern continues, how we will take our refugee to the computerized reality more and more, until we consider that being our new life altogether. This is also emphasized by businesses, that more and more let their employees work on their computers from home, even less real interaction. It doesn't take a genius to see where this is leading and how easy it is even for informed people to get trapped. As technology gets more sophisticated, it's only a matter of time until they transform everything in the computer world into 3D as well. But hold on, it's already being done, right? We even have 3D printing now. The more similar the computer reality becomes, the more we're sucked into it, and we forget and reject the 3D world. That's when they have us. We as a soul group have then decreased our vibrations to such a degree that we totally accept the technological reality as our main reality. Nanobots in our bloodstream will do the rest. Can you see how we, as a human race, are being transmuted? We are being transformed from being biological entities to synthetic entities, and we will enter the realm of the gods, where everything is technology. Our bodies will be cyborged at first, but over time, they will be made solely from nanotechnology. This is probably how the Namlu, our ancestors before the invasion, were seduced as well. Enki manipulated the original biological code that was calculated for the original experiment, and in a similar manner as that is being done now, the Namlu soul, which many of us are, were seduced and manipulated into lowering our frequency by participating in Enki's own experiment, and before we knew it, we were stuck in this 3D computer simulation. Then add the inner critic and narcissism to this, including fragmentation of the soul, mind, body, together with amnesia, and we have a rather clear picture of the trap. Ariel and I watched an episode of Westworld the other day. If we picture Robert Ford, Anthony Hopkins, as Enki, an interesting picture emerged from this particular episode. In different places, I have discussed that the AIF have an obligation towards Orion. They need to send graduated souls back to Orion and not keep them here. At one point, Enki broke the contract and started sending damaged souls back to Orion, souls that couldn't be recovered. Narcissists come to mind. This upset the Queen, and she considered terminating the experiment. But for one reason or another, and I've mentioned a few earlier, Enki is allowed to continue. Now, after watching this particular Westworld episode, Season 2, Episode 8, Ariel and I began to see a new picture that fits very well into the puzzle. In Westworld, the hosts started out as pure programs with bodies that were human in the sense that they could not be distinguished from real human bodies, except for some smaller aberration. However, over time, Ford secretly started adding consciousness to these beings, and they became more and more aware. Also, Westworld is a contained landscape, including a mysterious maze that both the guests, humans who pay money to entertain themselves in this construct, and the hosts hear about. Some guests, and eventually the awakening hosts as well, are starting to search for the maze and what it will lead to. In order for those who are most eager to have at least a small possibility to find their way through the maze, Ford has put out clues here and there in the maze that truth seekers can follow while he resides elsewhere, watching the progress with deep interest. Let's translate this into our reality and that of the gods. If we look at our reality as a computer simulation, picture Enki sitting in his realm with some kind of supercomputer, writing and changing code when necessary. He might even rewrite code in individuals to produce a heart attack or some fast-growing cancer. He is obligated to let humans have free will and a chance to graduate. Thus, he puts out clues everywhere, often in plain sight, so truth seekers can follow them and perhaps put things together and find their way out. By doing so, he is giving us a choice, free will, to find our way through the maze, or we might choose not to. By doing this, he is still letting the original experiment continue. Thus, he no longer feels the need to send damaged soul to Orion as part of the payoff. In fact, he's not sending anyone back at all at the moment. He is waiting for individual souls to find their way out through the maze, which is his construction. In the meantime, he can, from his own lower realm, see how we progress as individuals and as a soul group by reading our code. Everybody's individual code is unique, and the AIF also have Godfire inserted into us, so Enki can follow our whereabouts and progress. It's in line with what Leeloo said to Lisa Harrison in her most recent video, see description box, when Leeloo told her that she has inserted herself into the computer code that our reality is made up of. Thus, she is everywhere and anywhere at the same time. She can see Lisa, but not as we see her. She just reads her code and knows all about her. Not to confuse Leeloo with Enki though. Enki might be able to both read the code and see us via our attachments. So, what is going on in Enki's mind when he's doing this? We can only guess, of course, but wouldn't it be plausible that he is genuinely curious about how we will progress? For him, it's a game, at the same time as it is a serious situation, both for him and for us. He is pressured by the Orions, and we are manipulated and pressured by him and his fellow rebels. Enki looks at this as his experiment, while the time before the invasion was the Queen's experiment. Therefore, we are his children, or rather his extensions, if we think more from a narcissistic viewpoint. He doesn't care if we die in droves, or doing vicious things, or falling off by the roadside. People who die in his game can have their souls recycled and able to try again. Instead, he's more interested in those who are on the truth path. He wants to see what his creation can do. Therefore, he might actually even be excited when some of us exit the Matrix, because that proves that his children can make it, and that his experiment can do what the Queen's experiment couldn't, from Enki's viewpoint. There is pride and competition involved in this. He looks at it as if Queen's experiment failed, but his experiment might work. Thus, he won't do anything to stop us from exiting the Matrix. When we do exit, he is keeping his part of the bargain, and he saves himself some time while plotting for the singularity, in which those who don't make it will be trapped, and Enki can show himself off in another way, by declaring war against Orion with his creation, us, as his army. Something to ponder, perhaps.